Yesterday, Sayadaw explained the first pair of Niyana and Avarana, causes of and obstacles to liberation. Today, in accordance with the sequence, he will go on to the second pair of Niyana and Avarana, causes of and obstacles to liberation. The second pair of Niyana and Avarana are non-ill will, abhyabhada, and the opposite of that, ill will, vyabhada. In the book of discrimination, Patisamhita Megha, it is given these things. The non-ill will, abhyabhada, is a cause for the liberation of the noble ones, pure and sublime individuals. Hence it is known as Niyana, causes of liberation. And as for the opposite, because it is non-ill will, it is synonymous with metta and karuna, loving kindness and compassion. Because this leads to the path to liberation, this is known as Niyana, the means of or the causes of liberation by the noble ones, the pure and sublime individuals. The opposite of this, namely ill will, vyabhada, is Niyana-varana, obstacle to liberation, because it obstructs the path to liberation, and it is known as Niyana-varana. And the reason for calling this as obstacle is that it blocks or obstructs the path to liberation or causes for liberation. Hence it is Niyana-varana, obstacle to liberation. Now yogis are noting, by sustaining their mindfulness with energetic aim, that is, with exertion of energy and aiming, at every mindfulness, at every object arising in the body, beginning with the main object of rising and falling. So they have no ill will, or there is no ill will in the stream of consciousness, so long as they are practicing this vipassana, or their vipassana consciousness is devoid of ill will. And the consciousness or the mental state which arises together with this vipassana consciousness is also called adosa, which is synonymous with ill will, non-hatred. This also is abhyabhada. So adosa and abhyabhada are synonymous, non-ill will and non-hatred. They are one and the same. Whoever from the mundane or worldly sense, not looking for one's own self-interest, but looking for the welfare of others, or giving emphasis on the welfare of others, will be satisfied with himself or herself, and he or she will be devoid of ill will or anger. This is abhyabhada, non-ill will. Even one is faced with hate-inducing objects, one will not be overcome by hatred. There will be no anger, aversion, and dosa, anger, will not arise. Always one will be thinking about the welfare of others. And looking at the welfare of others, looking for the welfare of others, one does not wish to harm others because of oneself. One can bear with others. One is not hesitant to forgive. And one will be free from these cruel, violent actions which arises as a result of the lack of patience. So one will be free from dosa or vyabhada. This is abhyabhada, non-ill will. Understanding the welfare of others, one cultivates metta, extends loving kindness to others, and wishing to forgive them, for any unwholesome things, for any wrongdoing, and being compassionate, having compassionate feeling to others is abhyabhada. This is very obvious, non-ill will. Looking for one's own self-interest, self-centeredness, then one cannot be able to possess such kind of mentality. Therefore, one will react at once for anything, and one will not be able to forgive others. In this way, one is not hesitant to commit acts of cruelty, and such situation is a very difficult one. If on top of one's inherent quality of good mentality, kindness and so on, one can practice, or one can add, one can supplement this vipassana consciousness, the non-ill will, abhyabhada, will become stronger and more powerful. When one comes to this situation, especially at the stage of sankharupekha jnana, knowledge of the contemplation of equanimity towards all formations, there will be no likes and dislikes about desirable and undesirable objects, though one may face unbearable sensations during the practice, of course, and even one's noting mind is not going smooth, one will not be disappointed. There will be no aversion or ill will. And hence this is the outlet or cause for the liberation of ariyas, the pure and sublime individuals, to realize nibbana. Therefore, this non-ill will is the cause for liberation. Hence, one should depend on the this ill will, this non-ill will, as niyana, cause for the liberation. If one has not developed this, one should develop in order to realize this, and if it's already developed, one should strengthen this. Whether with oneself or with certain object or substance, or during the practice, if the practice is not going well, one may become disappointed. Aversion might take place. This is ill will, vyabhara. So as for vyabhara, this is a change of one's mind or consciousness, change of mind state. Originally, one will have loving kindness towards others, adosa, non-hatred towards others, but a change takes place from vyabhara to abhyabhara. Either because of oneself, because one is not satisfied with oneself, or during the practice there arises unbearable sensation, vedana, then one becomes dissatisfied, one becomes angry. This is vyabhara, ill will. So when this situation arises, when one comes to this situation, one is said to have the fermented or putrefied mentality. Just like a substance becomes fermented or putrefied or rotten, the smell and the froth come out when you open the pot or something. So, not being satisfied, dissatisfaction, one is overcome by vyabhara, ill will, and one's mind or consciousness is said to become putrefied, fermented, not being able to bear with others, and as soon as one touches it, one will react. If one is touched, one will react, just like when one touches the putrefied material or fermented material, the froth, all sorts of bubbles and froth and odor, bad odor, it will not be a good odor, bad odor will come out. This is mental fermentation or mental putrefaction. Once the fermentation takes place, as mental sour, the mind becomes sour. If one is not one does not look for any method to treat this sour mind, or even if one finds the method one does not practice in order to improve or overcome this sour mind, there will be a change in the materiality, the body. The body may change as a result of this mind. Mind produce materiality, such as especially the blood circulation. The blood may become very polluted or unclear, and becomes thick, viscous, and this may give rise to blood pressure diseases such as blood pressure or heart diseases. And when such things happen, there can also be stress and strain and stress in the people, and even one can even die. So this is very dangerous. If one does not die, if one does not improve in a timely manner, if there's no timely improvement or cultivation or development, every time one sees this object, hate-inducing object, or undesirable people or beings, one will become dissatisfied. Aversion, anger will arise. So yielding or being overcome by dosa, one can transgress. One can, this can lead into transgressive actions by speech and body, verbally and physically, and one can go mad even. Due to dosa, anger, there is such a thing as stricken or madness with anger. Godong mataka, that is the expression. Madness with anger, or frenzied with ill will. And because one is always becoming dissatisfied, aversion is always arising in one's mind, this will be like a disease, a mental disease. And this mental disease is what is meant by this Godong mataka, frenzied with ill will, or madness with anger. When this vyabhada, ill will, arises, not cultivating one's mind, not improving one's mind, one will not understand the path or the way to liberation, and one cannot realize the cause of liberation. One cannot realize the path of liberation, and one cannot also understand it, and one cannot cause it to arise or develop it. Hence, this vyabhada, ill will, is known as niyanavarana, an obstacle to liberation. When the mind becomes sour or fermented, one has got to cultivate welfare, the benevolence, universal benevolence, wishing for the welfare of others, patience and forgiveness, and cultivating this mentality, one can avoid ill will. This is one way of avoiding or evading vyabhada, especially by extending loving kindness to others. May all beings be happy, or may he, she be happy, or may he, she, or all beings be free from harm, and so on. This is one way of avoiding or preventing or overcoming this vyabhada with the practice of loving kindness meditation. For those of us who are practicing the way of mindfulness, satipatthana, we are noting every arising object in the body with energetic aim, with sustaining mindfulness, and striving to cultivate insight knowledge. So in this way we are strengthening our mind in the practice, our bhavana mind, a meditative mind. In this way we can be able to overcome this ill will, mental sourness. And even if we face or we are confronted with undesirable objects or undesirable individuals, because we have matured, we have developed our mind, cultivated our mind, because the mind becomes matured, one will be able to extend loving kindness to the other individual or others, and one will be able to forgive and forget. And in this way, one can overcome or avoid this kind of unwholesome state of mind. If this arises, as soon as this sour mind arises, or vyabhara, ill will, or anger, aversion arises, one should note and overcome. If one does not know the method of overcoming, and even if one knows, one does not put into practice, and if one leaves it as it is, running, let it run its own natural course, then this will become larger and larger, and greater and greater. Then one's life will degenerate. Like when you have a house and some defects in certain parts of the house are left without repairs, without repairing, just watching with folded arms. And these defective parts of the house will not become improved, will not become good by themselves. So if one does not repair it, mend it, then these parts of the house which are which needs repair will gradually become out of repairs, out of order, and then become wasted and useless. So also, if one does not cultivate one's mind and leaving the mind, letting it run its own natural course without timely improvement, then one's life will degenerate. So one has got to prevent or improve or cultivate by the methods already discussed. If one just watches as it is without any cultivation or development, then one's life will be spoiled or destroyed. We cannot live alone on our own. We live with the family, members of the family. We live with friends. We live with relatives. We live with country people, own country people. If we live in a village or some parts of county, we live in a community, and so on. So it is necessary to be harmonious with others as with the society. So when it comes to a certain emergency or case, then there should not be such a thing as others forgive you. It should be the other way around, that you should forgive others. You should be the one who forgives others, not letting others forgive you all the time. So this is how one develops virtuous mentality. So if one cultivates in this manner, one is bound to be free from vyabhara, ill will. One is angry with somebody, or in one's thoughts or fantasies, one is quarreling with somebody, then one may feel unhappy mentally and physically, mental distress and physically not in good condition, not satisfactory. This is dukkha vedana, suffering, painful sensations. And if painful sensations arise, one has got to note and overcome. Furthermore, if one sees or confronts these unbearable sensations or experience unbearable sensations, one may become angry, aversion may arise, or if when one sees or hears a sight or sound which does not meet with one's liking, one does not like these things, one may become angry. When, especially in the practice, if one is noting it's not going well, one may become disappointed, and that also is vyabhara, ill will. If they rise, they have to be noted and overcome. In this way, one has got to note and overcome. And if aversion or vyabhara arises again, then one All one has to do is note again, note and note and note, and overcome. Note precisely. And if by noting 2 or 3 times, this Vyavada doesn't go away, one should again note and note precisely, more and more precisely, successively. Like when you have a disease, when you're sick, you've got to, if the sickness is very serious, you've got to take some potent medicine and try and get rid of this disease or sickness. In that case, this Vyavada will totally go away, will totally disappear. If one is overwhelmed by this kind of unwholesome mental state, namely Vyavada, one has got to overcome it by the means already discussed. If they arise, note and overcome. And the best method is the practice of the way of mindfulness, Satipatthana. If one does not practice Satipatthana, then the mind will remain very immature and tender. If one cannot cultivate knowledge, the mind will become very immature. And if one does not cultivate or develop this immature mind or tender mind with the practice of the way of mindfulness, Satipatthana, effectively to satisfactory stage, then this mind will remain tender and immature as ever. Although the body may age, the mind will remain, if the mind is uncultivated, untrained, it will remain tender and immature as ever. If the mind is not cultivated with the practice of the way of mindfulness. If anything which is small, immature or tender will be weak and will not be able to resist the enemies or the opposite states will bully you if you are weak. It will bully this mind if the mind is weak. Not only Vyavada, other unwholesome mental states will take the upper hand in one's life. So it's like tender fruits and trees. Because they are tender, because they are small and immature, they cannot withstand any rough handling. And if they are handled, they will come off and they will become rotten. So also the mind, if the mind is small and tender and immature, one will not be able to resist such adverse conditions. And so if the tree is very tender, it will rot very easily. It will putrefy very easily. So also, if one does not practice this way of mindfulness in order to cultivate one's mind, one does not train one's mind, then one's mind will remain as tender and immature as ever because it is not trained. So what are the consequences? The consequences are that if one meets lust-inducing objects, one will crave for such things. Raga will arise. And if one meets hate-inducing objects, one will react with anger, hatred, aversion. The reaction will be very fast. There will be immediate reaction. And if one's mind is left like that without training, this will lead to transgressive actions by speech and body. So this is very dangerous. Therefore, Satipatthana is important to develop, enlarge, ennoble one's mind. Then one will be able to overcome these such difficulties. And if only one can cultivate knowledge, then one will be able to develop the power of stamina, the power of resilience, spiritual resilience, spiritual stamina. So Satipatthana gives assurance and bold assurance, and takes the guarantee to produce or to develop spiritual resilience, spiritual stamina. With the Satipatthana, one's mind can be energized by way of mindfulness, so that the tender mind will become developed, enlarged. So to put it down to practice, in the way of mindfulness, Satipatthana, one notes every arising object, beginning with the main object of rising and falling. In order to note that, one aims one's noting mind towards the object in order to strike with pinpoint precision. Because of the power of aim, there will be no deviation. The mind will not be deviated from the object of observation. There will be no deviation towards the thoughts of sensual pleasures, kama vidaka. There will be no thoughts of ill will, even about undesirable objects. So all these, one will be devoid, one's mind will be free from all these unwholesome states of mind. So one's mind is said to be properly controlled and restrained, and this is energizing one's mind. And also there's another energy, another mental power, namely this energy, virya, the driving power to note, to drive this noting mind towards the object observation, to push this noting mind, to marshal this noting mind towards the object observation, as already explained, with the application, with the exertion of 3 stages of energy, namely initial launching energy, stepped up or boosted energy in order to overcome sluggishness and unbearable sensations, and finally the energy of persistence, progressively until one realizes one's goal. So the virya is the driving power in order to drive the noting mind towards the object of observation. The noting mind reaches the object properly. So in this way, this vidaka, which is the aiming, the right aiming, aims the mind towards the object observation, and virya, energy, drives or directs the mind to reach or to strike the object observation, to it precisely. So this will give rise to precise mindfulness. Then there will be pinpoint precision, pinpointedness on the object. The mind will fall calm and collected on the object. That is energizing one's mind. If one has got to practice it consistently and constantly, every second, every moment of one's practice, applying this aiming and energy every second. For in 1 minute, if you are able to do in 1 minute, to maintain this in 1 minute, at the rate of 1 second per noting, there will be 60 times application of this aiming and energy to strike with pinpoint precision. And you can imagine in 5 minutes and 1 hour, how many times that you are able to strike with pinpoint precision. At the same time, energizing your mind, so that the mind becomes enlarged from the small size. Then one is said to be able to get the upper hand of all difficulties or opposite states. If one is able to cultivate knowledge as much as one cultivates knowledge, one is bound to develop one's mind so that the mind becomes matured, and the result is that one will be able to forbear, the power of forbearance and the power of resilience towards all unbearable sensations such as heat, cold and so on. One will be able to bear these adverse conditions. And if one is confronted with unbearable sensations in the practice, one will not react by way of anger or aversion. One will be able to bear these unbearable sensations, and one will not react. And even if one reacts, one will be able to control in a timely manner, so that this will calm down and one will realize peace of mind. So if one cultivates knowledge, the mind will become matured and will be able to establish this power of spiritual resistance. That is, if one meets desirable or hate-inducing objects, there will be no hatred or ill will or vyabhada. And even if there will be no likes and dislikes, there will be no dejection and elation. One will be balanced, equipoised. So this is the power of resistance, power of resilience towards all adverse conditions. As has been explained, one develop these mental powers. If the mental powers are not developed, then one will not have the capacity to overcome the opposite states. As much as one develops the mental powers, one will be able to overcome the opposite states, unbearable situations, and so on. For example, if the power of aiming is strong, as much as the power of aiming is strong, the mind will not deviate to other undesirable objects, thinking about sensual pleasures and so on. There will be no slipping off to other undesirable objects. And with the application, with the exertion of energy, as much as one's virya is strong, the mind will be directed or marshaled towards the object of observation. And in this way, this virya will not give a chance for the hindrances to arise in one's stream of consciousness. Therefore, these mental powers open the way for the development of the mind. That means open the way in order to overcome unwholesome states and to develop wholesome states. With the mindfulness, sati, it blocks the entry of kilesas into one's stream of consciousness. Kilesas are not allowed to enter one's stream of consciousness. It is said to have blocked or to have obstructed, to have closed. So that this is the power of development. And with samadhi, concentration, it causes the mind not to scatter and only causes to consolidate, to fall collected on the object of observation. The mind becomes assembled or collected without any scattering, without any distraction. So one has got to make them develop, sati and samadhi, at every second of one's practice. So if they are developing, that means sati and samadhi are growing second by second, moment by moment, minute by minute, hour by hour, day after day, then one is bound to cultivate one's wholesome states of mind. Such is bhavana. Then develop these mental powers in this way, trying to be concurrent with the object observation, with the application of this aiming and energy. One is bound to see things in their true nature, and as much as the knowledge blossoms, one is bound to become matured and will be able to develop the power of resilience. This also is bhavana. So we stop here for this evening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.